Hello everybody, I hope you all are doing great. Today we will talk about one of the other very helpful, very useful and common heavy equipment, which are graders. Okay, great machines with a lot of capabilities that you would see in almost any construction project. So before we get started, let's watch a quick video which shows some of the applications of these graders. So as you can see, the tires of the grader could get a very diagonal shape. This is to exert more power on the earth. You can see the moldboard. Such as many other machines, the skills of an operator plays a significant role in the productivity of the machine. And nowadays we have digital blade slope meter, so you can precisely track and watch the slope to get a unanimous surface with minimal, deviations from what the contract requires. Yeah, this is the filter. As you can imagine, graders are best to move, soft materials, and definitely not a good choice to move, rocks or hard surfaces, because your moldboard, will wear out quickly if you do that, or your machine could get stuck. All right, so let's see. To get started, graders are multi-purpose machines used for different types of earthwork, including spreading the earth, grading, shaping, bank sloping, and ditching. Okay, so on many projects, graders are used as the finishing machines. So once the excavation and filling are done, most of the time we need and after the compaction is done, most of the time we need a grader, to create a level surface. Finishing operations or compaction of embankments, is another. Finishing operations usually come after compactions, which I just mentioned. So graders are used for shaping material and to the required line and grade specified to the required line and grades that is specified by the contract. Okay, so sometimes you could even use a grader to mix materials, so to shake materials, to mix materials, to create a level surface, to move materials sometimes, and other applications. So as you can see, at least one of them or some of them are required in almost any construction project. That makes graders, that makes graders one of the very common equipment, heavy equipment, construction heavy equipment. So on top of that, graders are capable to work on almost very steep slopes, and which enables them to work in difficult condition, in tough condition where some other equipment pieces cannot necessarily work smoothly. For example, graders can work on the slopes as steep as 3 to 1, which if you convert it to degrees, that would be 18.5 degrees, and they can do it. They can do the job for you. So graders applications in a nutshell will be balancing cut down high spots. It means So most of the time there is some cutting, there's some filling, and after you cut, you use the earth, you use the excavated earth to fill the trenches and to fill some other parts that could be done using graders. You would use a grader for trimming and removing the extra dirt from the top of the surface. So you shave it from the top of the surface using a grader. They could be used for haul road maintenance, which is a big deal because if you don't take good care of your haul road maintenance, your speed will be compromised, the quality of work, the productivity, and obviously the costs will increase. So all of them will be negatively impacted if you don't take care of your haul roads. So graders is one of the best machines that can maintain your haul roads, and that's why everyone would would require some type of grader if heavy equipment are on the job site, which is the case often. So for material blending and spreading, you can still use a grader. For example, for cement treatment, for lime, mixing with cement, you can use a grader. Scarifying and mixing of the materials prior to compaction. So graders could be used prior and after compaction for different reasons. Prior to compaction, it would be scarifying and mixing of the materials, and after the compaction, it would be to maximize, the unanimity, the smoothness of the surface. Okay. So they could also be used for bank slope trimming and ditch cutting. Yes, they can, they can cut a ditch, which most of the time would, you would think an excavator would do, but in many cases, graders can get the job done for you. Also for trimming slopes, there's a compartment called sloper that would be attached to a grader, and that can create the slopes for us. And obviously for snow removal in cold areas or during the cold season, you would use a grader to remove the snow from the job site. In this picture, you would see different compartments of a grader. Obviously, the most important part would be the moldboard, because that is the part that actually does the job, does the earthwork for us. Obviously, the size of the moldboard, its width, and its direction will create different applications for the moldboard. And the moldboard could get really diagonal, could even get close to a vertical or perpendicular to the earth, okay, if it is needed. So it has a lot of capabilities thanks to these two powerful cylinders and this circle here. So the engine is in the back, which pushes the machine, and there are a lot of hoses here, and you can, if necessary, you can open this, and for different maintenance purposes, you could have access to those hoses. The cabin, and most of the time there is some GPS devices which help you to go to go exactly straight, and to minimize the deviations from the straight track. So let's do the math first, and then the math parts first, and then we'll talk more about what other applications graders might have. So the estimation of the total time in hours or minutes is computed using this formula. The total time to do the job is P multiplied by D over S multiplied by E. But what are they? P would be the number of passes required, okay? So how many times the grader will have to pass the surface. That would be the number of passes. So P is a number. It's a very, small number. It could be 2, 3, 4, or sometimes 6, but usually, hardly ever gets, greater than 6 or 7. So D is the distance traveled in each pass, okay? Means in each pass how much distance the grader needs to go from the starting point to the ending point. And speed, S is the speed of the grader, which should be in mile per hour or foot per minute. And remember, 1 mile per hour would be 88 foot per minute. It's good to have that number in mind, and 88 is not that difficult to memorize. So 1 mph is 88 fpm. And E is the grader efficiency factor. Okay, so the total time, the bigger is the efficiency, the bigger is the denominator, and the bigger, the bigger is the efficiency, the smaller, the bigger will be the denominator, and the smaller will be the fraction. Okay, it means the lesser time it would take to do the job. And so the speed and efficiency have an inverse relationship. The faster your machine moves and the more efficient your machine is, you can get the job done with in a lower amount of time. All right, so let's do one example together here. It says maintenance of a 5 mile of haul road, so that would be the travel distance, requires cleaning the ditches and leveling and reshaping the roadway using an efficiency factor of 0.6. Yeah, 0.6. Cleaning the ditches requires 2 passes. The number of passes is given to us in first gear. So we have some tables. If the speed is not given to us by having the number of gears in which the machine is moving, you can make a good guess about the speed. So using that table, in this case, first gear would equal to 2.3 mile per hour. Leveling the road requires 2 passes in second gear, which can give the machine a speed of 3.7, and final shaping of the road requires 3 passes in the fourth gear with the speed of 9.7 miles per hour. Okay, so here you can see there are different parts, and in each part you have different number of passes and different speeds, or because you're using different gears. So you would use the equation in the previous slide 3 times. You would use it separately for each part, and in each part what you're doing is that we are in fact computing the time it takes to do one part of the job. Okay, for example, this is the time it would take for cleaning the ditches, okay, and leveling and reshaping the roadway. So cleaning the ditches has 2 passes. Leveling the road, this is leveling the road, second part, and the last part is final shaping. Okay, so final shaping would also take some time. So these are different operations you're doing with your grader. The amount of time it takes to get the whole job done would be the time it takes for cleaning, ditching, and leveling, plus the time it takes for leveling the road, and the time it takes for shaping the road. Okay, so you would use the equation 3 times, and in all of them you would use the same efficiency factor. Okay, because you're in fact estimating. Yeah, the efficiency could vary in different parts of the job because depending on the type of the soil, some parts are more efficient. It means in 1 hour your machine can work continuously for a bigger amount of time, and vice versa. There are some other activities, some tougher activities, in which you would need to take a look at the machine, or get off the machine, or stop the machine, so the efficiency would be lower. But just to make it easier, we would consider the same efficiency for the three parts. And that efficiency in this case would be 60% or 0.6. It means 60% of time the machine is working, is being productive, okay, in 60% of an hour. So if you do the math, it will tell you that it takes 7.3 hours for cleaning the ditches. It would take 4.5 hours for leveling the road, and it would take almost 2.5 hours for final shaping. Okay, so you can get an idea that cleaning the ditches and leveling and reshaping is the most time-consuming part of a grader's activities most of the time. That is the case. So the entire job would take close to 14.5 hours. Okay, as you can see, the problems of this chapter are pretty straightforward and easy to do. There is no, complication or tricky parts in them that we will focus, at least not that we will focus in this class. A haul road, second example, a haul road of 1,500 feet requires leveling and reshaping. The efficiency is 0.6, like the previous example. The work requires 2 passes, yeah, we needed that, in second gear, which would help us find the speed, which anyway is given to us as 3.7 miles per hour, and 3 passes in third gear. Okay, so as you can see, there will be 2 parts. In the previous problem it was 3 parts. Here we have 2 parts, and the only change, the only thing that is different from the previous example is that here we are seeing this change. Okay, so foot per minute, there is a conversion to change it to minute, from an hour to minute. So the entire thing, if you do the math, would take almost half an hour to do. Okay, so I guess it's pretty straightforward, no tricky parts. There were 2 different, the job could be divided into 2 main tasks. In each one, the number of passes the machine should go is given, the speed of the machine is given, and the efficiency is also given. Okay. Alright. Fine grading production. So, for finishing and fine grading work, or for production on a square yard per hour basis, okay, we would use a different equation for the production. When we are interested to know how many square yards per hour we can do, so it's based on the surface area. To find that, the production is this number, which is the constant part of the equation, multiplied by the speed. So S is again the speed. W here is the effective width per grader pass, and you know what it means. So not the entire width of the moldboard is being effective. Okay, by making a good estimate about how many, what percentage of the moldboard or what length of the moldboard is actually engaged or is actually doing the work, you can measure that and put that in this equation. And E is again the efficiency factor, like the previous example. So if you do that, it will tell you the production per, and that production is based on how many square yards you can do per every hour, in each hour. So in the previous example, it was telling us how much time it takes to get the job done. Here, it is the production rate. It means how many square yards per hour you can do. So, next example, it is required to grade the subgrade of a roadway before processing to construct the subways using an efficiency factor of 0.6. The grader will be operated in second gear for this work. The effective blade width per pass is 9 feet. Estimated production rate for these conditions. Obviously, we would use this equation again, and if you do the math, it will tell you, you will find the answer as more than 11,000 square yards per hour. So here we had an assumption. I want you to pay attention to that assumption. It was assumed that the fine grading could be accomplished with only one grader pass, because it did not tell us how many grader passes we need for that. So we just assumed it as one, but in many cases you can do it in only one time, and there should be 2 or multiple passes before you get a good quality of the surface. So keep that in mind if the number of passes is given to you. And remember about the graders, a very important factor to reduce the cost is to reduce the number of passes. If you can reduce the number of passes, it means your machine is being more productive. It means you don't have to you don't have to go the same routes for more times. You can get the job done in a less amount of time, which always means less costs. And that depends on 2 factors: skills of the operator and the road surface conditions. All right, so as you can see, graders are, they're really not very easy machines to work with, because they have multiple types of motions in different, directions. That creates a lot of, if you combine how many different cases could the wheels be, could the board be, you can figure out why the skill of an operator goes a long way in determining the productivity of these machines. Well, it is always the case, but for the case of graders, it's even more important. It significantly changes how much the amount of work you can produce in every hour. All right, so blade positions. Here you can see a general grade. The idea of diagonal wheels is to exert more power. Okay, according to the physics, when you do this, they're actually pushing, they're exerting more power on one side, and that would help the machine to create a bank cut. There are also other types, and in the next videos you will see some of them, but there are multiple directions. And if you remember this slide, the machine could work as straight, articulated, or a crab style, which gives it a lot of, there is a lot of versatility, a lot of variety in different types of motions it can make. All right, so good news is that the math part, for those of you who don't like it, is now over. Let's go back to grader operations, the practical part of this chapter. So if you don't know other parts of a grader, it doesn't matter, but make sure that you know about these 3 parts. Scurry-fire lock, which does not necessarily exist in all the graders, but some of them will have it. But if it is there, it can significantly change the application of the grader and its productivity. Obviously, there's a circle that determines the movement of the moldboard. So the moldboard, in the industry, many people would like to call it blade. Same word they would use for an excavator, but moldboard means the same thing. So keep that in mind. You should know these 3 parts for sure. The scurry-fire log, which is in the front of the machine, it touches the earth before the moldboard. The moldboard is in the middle, and the circle helps, the circle will rotate, helps the moldboard to rotate in different directions. And obviously cylinders are also important, which are not mentioned in this figure, but the cylinders can move the machine in different directions. As you can see, the moldboard could even get a 90-degree, it means totally perpendicular to Earth, which might sound awkward, but yeah, that's possible. And they can even get a negative slope. It means they can create, negative slopes if it is required. That makes, that makes graders, able to do a lot of different earthwork operations, as I mentioned earlier. So a grader's primary purpose is cutting and moving material with a blade known as a moldboard. Okay, so cutting and moving material is a grader's first or the primary task. Let's watch a quick video about this.
You'll often work in isolated areas and construction jobs, windrowing, spreading, and mixing material. From rough cuts and snow plowing to delicate finish work, the motor grader is a versatile piece of equipment, and it takes a great deal of skill to operate. 2. The axle moves independently, so there is little up and down effect on the frame of the machine. All graders have the same basic design in common: the long wheelbase, the centered blade, and the tandem wheels. The instruments and controls vary from one grader to the next. Some graders have automatic transmissions, while others have standard manual transmissions. Also, some graders have four-wheel drive, where only the back tandem wheels provide the traction, while other graders have all-wheel or six-wheel drive, where both the back and the front wheels provide traction. All graders have a rear differential that provides positive traction. That's where the tandem axles are locked and the wheels on both sides of the grader turn together. However, some graders have a differential that can be unlocked to make turning easier. When the differentials are unlocked, the wheels on each side of the grader turn independently of the wheels on the other side. Finally, some graders are articulated. Articulation allows for sharper turns and easier positioning of the grader at the work site. Graders that have a rigid frame are non-articulating. Each motor grader has its own system of instructions and controls. We can't cover all the models in this program, so read the operator's manual. Get to know the locations and functions of all the instruments and controls. Learn the capabilities and the limitations of the machine you'll be using. As an experienced operator, you know that startup involves much more than turning a key. You have to complete a series of daily checks and make sure the grader's in good shape. The daily checks can be divided into 4 parts: the walk-around inspection, engine checks, lubrication, and the cab inspection. Move the radiator cap, cater, count the dust,
The maintenance
manual,
parts.
or on the grader itself. Don't crank the starter for more than 30 seconds. The engine needs time to warm up so an oil film can develop on cylinder walls and other internal engine parts. And it gives you time to complete the cab inspection. Keep your gauges clean so you can see them clearly, and make sure they're all working. They can tell you a lot about the condition of the grader before you leave the yard. Take some time to clean up the cab. You'll often work in isolated oak indicates engine trouble. It should be almost colorless. Finally, test your brakes. Make sure you have full pedal and it doesn't go
Yeah, these are some of the safety tips, and I'll talk about safety in the last slides. So, finishing, shaping, bank sloping, and ditching. Let's watch another video. see the mold board. You can see the circle here. So as you can see, the operator's skill goes a long way in the productivity of the machine, because the machine, especially if you're working in the case of an articulated machine, it can move in a variety of directions. Okay, so you see here it is almost 90 degrees, and you see how it is trimming, and it's shaving the earth. It's doing it very neatly. And as you can see, the more soft are your materials, and if they have a good moisture content, you can more easily work with them. For example, working with clay would be super easy. No, that's not what you do. What not to do. Alrighty, so yeah, you see how we can create a trench super fast, super easy. It's a really nice video. It introduces different applications in a nutshell. It's a good compilation of different applications. Yeah, even clearing, cutting the branches, it will do it for you. Alright, let's go back to our slides, and actually immediately after this there's another video for mixing, spreading, side casting, leveling, crowning, light stripping operations, general construction, and dirt road maintenance. Let's watch third video here. So as you can see, pretty fast. As you can imagine, the number of passes can significantly change the productivity or the production rate of the machine. And as you can see, backing is easier than turning around in many cases. I mean, that would be faster, even if you can turn around here in this example, in this video. Well, it's not easy to turn around, but many times you have enough space for that, but still, just backing would be faster. Alright, so let's go back to our slides. We have a lot of videos today because we just wanted you guys to see the operations rather than just talk about them. So, ditching cuts, there are some important points I want you to know. So ditching cuts are done in second gear at full throttle Well, for all the gears, we use the full throttle in case of a grader. Okay, if you need less power, just you would lower the gear. You would not use a throttle partially. Okay, you would always use it at full throttle. So the marking cut is made at the outer edge of the bank slope. Um, yeah. So let me make my so when you're cutting, that would be in the outer edge. Okay, it means after cutting, you should still be able to see the lines. The toe of the moldboard should be in line with the outside edge of the lead tire. Okay, of the lead tire. So the marking cut provides a guide for subsequent operations. The marking cut provides a guide for subsequent operations, and cut are made as deep as possible, well obviously to the amount that is required, without stalling or losing control of the grader. Yeah, because that could sometimes be risky. So that could create accidents in some cases. Let's see a relevant video. Oops.
Okay, again, we're at our Texas Sandbox site today.
Did
I want
I?
a big shout out to Ruston Paving. They're beautiful blue.
They're beautiful.
Processes. Now, before you begin, remember to do a thorough inspection of the machine, the personnel, and the zone.
The great thing about a motor grader is you're on pass, the right side tires or acts what you're trying to do, and it will pull you into your cut. Having your tires leaned will help prevent this. Remember, we are not going for death necessarily. We are trying to get the material out that we can. A lot harder than use the power to make your cut. While cleaning, put your front tires down into the ditch.
Yeah, this is
Having
an
your
articulated
tandems up on
grader,
dry
as you can see.
will provide you traction so that you can move through the mud or
They're really, complicated machines for when it comes to operating them.
point. You do not need that
Obviously, a
rolling
lot
effect.
more,
Having the blade
complicated
tilted
than an
forward.
excavator.
A lot of operators like. Now we need to concentrate on the back slope. We're
All right,
going to use the same
so
process
I do
that we
recommend
did.
watching the full video when you have time. Let's talk about moving windrows. Yeah, when a grader makes a cut, a windrow will be formed, okay? Right next to the cut, right next to the trench, there will be a windrow. So, the windrow can then be shifted across the grade with successive cuts. You could use that earth to fill the adjacent cuts. But sometimes cuts produce more materials than it is needed in the vicinity. So you would need to haul the excess materials to somewhere else. In that case, you would use a scraper to haul the materials to the appropriate location of the project. I do have a video again for this one. Not the best quality. Yeah. So this is not something that all graders have, but as you can see, yeah, it creates additional flexibility for the grader. But in this case, the moldboard cannot be placed in the middle. Okay. So, haul rope maintenance. Let's watch a review.
Yeah. We asked him, so what happens if you go in the river Then you float to one side of the cab and can't get out a fucking window or anything else because you're pinned, because you're floating.
Not mean
Excuse
you're
this
safe.
guy's French.
Somebody who gives a fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah, I will stop that.
I won't.
Yeah. Once again, the better maintenance you have on the haul roads, the more productive will be your equipment, so you can get the job done faster with the lower costs, so you can decrease the costs of the project. All right, so some professional tips. So in spreading, so graders can be used to spread and blend dumped loads. They're most effective at spreading and mixing free-flowing materials. It means not very tough materials or not materials with, big or sharp edges. Graders are best suited for materials in a loose state or in a bank state, okay? So in the compacted state, materials get tough and, moving, shaping, grading, finishing, and different types of earthwork operations would be a lot more difficult to do on them when they get compacted, especially in the case of tough soils. So proper working speeds depends on the condition of the ground. They should, like I mentioned earlier, graders should always be used in full throttle, H gear. If less speed is required, you would lower the gear, and you would let the machine work in full throttle at all times. So turns are more time consuming than backing in many conditions, so you would remember, backing is preferred to turning around. Number of passes can significantly impact the production and efficiency, and what goes a long way in reducing the number of passes would be the operator's skill, planning, and eliminating unnecessary passes. Okay, so tire inflation is also important. Tire inflation should not be, if you have a lot of pressure in your tires or overinflated tires, what will happen is that your machine, the traction of the machine will be lower, okay? So you might see wheel slippage and greater bucking. So it is not recommended to have overinflated tires. Okay, so blade extended, as you can see here. If the machine is not working, this is a very important cause of a lot of different construction accidents, not only for the people, for the laborers, but also for other machines. Remember, in case of heavy equipment, there are a lot of blind spots. It's not like a vehicle where there's a very small amount of small area for blind spot. So you don't want to put things that are hard to observe, or you're purposefully increasing the chance of accidents. That's why when your machine is not working, you should make sure that the moldboard is entirely underneath the machine and it doesn't stick out from the machine. So here on the right hand side, you see some different types of cuts. If you want to cut a V-ditch, that's what you would do. So if the tires bend to this side, it means you are creating a tench to the opposite side. Okay, this is to exert more pressure on earth. So flat bottom ditch cut, wide side reach, as you can see here, and high band cut, which we saw in the video. So you can grade the slope in many cases, and thanks to GPS and laser blade technologies, nowadays you can do this with a lot of precision, which is great. Yeah, these laser blades or GPS devices are big help for the operator to make sure that they are going the straight path with minimal deviations, and the slope is maintained as what is required according to the contract. So again, moldboard is the part that actually does the job. There are different types of moldboards with different capacities. The width of the moldboard is a big identifier of the production rate, and moldboards are obviously one of the parts that would wear out faster than other parts. Okay, so tires and moldboards are, you know, they directly touch the earth and do the work, do the tough part of the job, so they wear out a lot faster than other parts. Right, so major types of blade controls for accuracy and precision. I mentioned this. The first one would be the laser blade control. As you can see, it's a laser transmitter and a laser sensor. Okay, so it works as together they work as a sender and receiver, and that would help the operator of the machine to go straight, and by straight they mean exactly straight. And that's not easy because you're not working on an asphalt surface or a concrete surface many times, because there's a lot of movement in different directions, and because you know, the soil could lead you to the sites where you don't want to. So they come they are really helpful. So quick video here about these friends.
Use a Caterpillar track type tractor
Laser
with an
blade.
AccuGrade laser system to level an area. Project applications include building stockpiling pads, leveling tops of dams, level lifts to aid in compact transmitter setup. Therefore, becoming efficient at transmitter setup can increase the time you spend moving material with the Notice that no measure, so initially, it is as the operator becomes precise laser.
As you can see, they could be set up using only one operator, and they're fast to set up and use, and of course, easy to use. So another technology is GPS blade controls. Okay, let's watch the second video. So we're talking about the devices that would add precision and accuracy. So global positioning system or GPS
Towards the south. So let's go watch.
would help the operator. I mean, by connecting to a server or to a source, it will guide the operator to go exactly as what the contract wants or what the job requires. Okay. So at home, I would ask you to watch the full video, because you might forget some of the materials that you learned in this class, but if you watch these videos, you will get a good understanding of many different applications of the machines and equipment. So later on that you are on the job site, it's not like that you're starting from scratch. You have some knowledge, you have some basic knowledge that would help you make better decisions and learn faster. So why not doing that? Okay, my camera just turned off. That means, or no, I don't know. Let me see if I can turn it on again. Give me 1 second. Alright, I am back. I think. Here we go. So we are almost done. We're in the last few slides. So the GPS system, technically the way it works is that there's a base station, there's a field grid, and the office link. Again, they work as sender or receiver to connect the operator to the office, and then to help the machine go in the exact direction that is required. So graders could be combined with rippers. Rear mount rippers, as implied by the name, are in the back, and in one of the videos, if you remember, we saw these rippers. Soil stabilization with fly ash could be done with grader, which was a big deal. So that's why we say graders could be used before compaction or after compaction. So yeah, here again you are seeing the rear mount ripper. Graders plus scarifiers. Remember, in the beginning of the lecture I mentioned there are 3 parts for every grader that we need to learn, which are the moldboard, the scarifier, and the circle. So this is the scarifier. It helps to move the earth, to move the tough parts before the moldboard reaches them. So it kind of prepares it, removes the hard, remove the rocks or big parts, and facilitates actually using, makes the road surface more ready for the moldboard. All right, so last but not least, actually safety comes first, but here we're talking about it in our last slide, or the slide before the last. So yeah, safety, this is a problem that is not really scarce. It can happen if the operator, wants to do risky stuff and wants to do the job faster. So by applying a lot of pressure, unbalanced pressure on one side, and then, the operator should have a good understanding of the balance of the machine. This is very important in case of cranes and graders, okay? Because otherwise the machine, especially if you're working on slope, the machine is not, such a thing is not very unlikely. It can happen. So when you're working on a grader, you should put accident prevention signs. This is required based on OSHA rules. We put a red flag 6 feet above the left rear wheel when you're working on a highway or a roadway, so the machines can get aware that the equipment is working here. So never allow other personnel to ride on. Yeah, these are sensitive. These are tricky machines to work with. So the skill of the operator is very important. If the operator is not there, do not be tempted to try it because it could be pretty risky. Keep the moldboard angled well under the machine. Okay, I talked about it in earlier slides. So it won't stick out from the underneath of the machine and create potential hazard for the personnel and other machines on the job site. So we're done with graders, but before we wrap up or to finish this lecture, I want to talk about 2 more. In one slide, I will talk about 2 more grading machines, which are the Gradall and the trimmer. So let's watch a very quick video about the Gradall, see what they do for us. If you're angry at me, I'm helping this machine to crunch. Okay. As you can imagine, they are a lot faster because they're working on builds. Control of the machine could be easier, but the amount of, the maneuver of the machine is limited. So definitely make sure to watch this video because these machines are also almost common, not very, but they are common. You would see them in many projects. So they combine the operations that a hoe, a drag line, and grader do. They're effective in reaching restricted working areas, because they can reach it remotely. They don't have to have the machine there. You can send the mold there that does job for you. So used for both excavation, as you saw here, it was actually excavating, and also it could be used for finishing the work. The trimmer is another another machine that works, that is actually used for finishing and grading. And let's watch a quick video about how it works. So it trims the earth, it's super powerful, and then it actually, the soil that is not wanted could be stocked on the shoulder. So, has its own advantages, such as the tracker or crawler that you wouldn't normally find on a grader. Alright, so that completes our lecture today about graders. I'll see you all next time.